Okay, first off, Grit, I don't think you know what that word means. You constantly use the word ad hominem attacks, but I don't insult you. I criticize you heavily, yes. I have an aggressive way of arguing with people, certainly. But I am not ad hominem attacking you. I am merely criticizing you as not an anarchist if these are the beliefs you hold. And in fact, I'm not even arguing your point that direct democracy is a bad thing. I'm arguing your point that you're challenging the wrong people. I am not your enemy. It is the moderators who are your enemy. It is anyone who believes in reactionary, regressive thoughts that is your enemy. It's the same thing with Atheist Gamer 100 and Geno360. What is it about me specifically that you have a problem with? How am I in any way hindering you? That's what this comes down to. Am I somehow infringing on your rights? No. Then what's the problem? Moderators are infringing on your rights. You don't seem to have a problem with that. So, you failed to answer the question. If you have a problem with that sort of philosophy, why are you bothering with me? Bother with them. Use your direct democracy approach on them. And quite frankly, I have nothing wrong with that idea. I think the like-dislike system would work well in social conditioning. I don't necessarily believe that it should be an excuse to delete content, but more so try to steer society toward a positive direction. People are, I hate to say this, but people are like sheep. They're like animals. You train them and then they do it. You train them a certain way, you say no, bad dog, and then eventually they get the concept. And while it's sad to say, yes, most people are too dumb for their own good, and that's why you have to condition them. That's why you have to have propaganda. That's why you have to have the vanguard. I don't want it to be that way. I would certainly love for everyone to be enlightened and well-educated. But most people are willfully ignorant. That is the society we live in now. What you're advocating is blind idealism. It's just blind optimism, more so. What I'm advocating is realism. It may be seen as to some as cynicism, but it's realism. Realistically, most people do not care about their own control. They do not care about their own subversion and slavery, which is why we have moderators in the first place. So, understanding that, understanding how people are, that is what we have to work with. What we have to work with is right here, right now, people are too dumb for their own good. They want to be controlled. They want to be subverted. How can we change that? Does it really matter whatever methods we use, considering what we're working with? If people are already evil, they're in no position to judge anybody. No one's really around to lecture and to make us feel bad about doing underhanded tactics to revolutionize the world. So that's what it comes down to. Paragon versus Renegade alignment. You're advocating this squeaky clean Paragon image of how, people are inherently good, and just given the situation, well, who's going to give them that situation? You're not going to get that situation by just, politely talking to people. People don't want to discuss things civilly. They don't want to, have discourse and talk to you like an equal person. I'm talking to you like an equal person because I'm a good person. But most people aren't. And not to say that I'm in every way good, because someone's going to come along and accuse me of saying that I'm better than everybody else. No, but I get it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't. What are you supposed to do about that? So in regards to what I would do personally about moderators, well, that's why I'm trying to get people together. I'm trying to organize so that we can essentially take it up with the law and make law enforcement impose sanctions against moderators, pose sanctions against websites where they cannot delete content, because by deleting content, that would be an obstruction of justice. Let's say, for example, someone admitted to raping a child online. Rather than letting the moderator dictate that that person can't say that, delete the content, then ban them, They have to keep it up there regardless of whether or not it's legal, because that is evidence. To do anything to that is to tamper with said evidence, and the moderator should be held responsible for that. Just like Steve should be held responsible for the death of that 14 to 15-year-old that killed himself on chat room when, he had all the time in the world to shut that chat room down, but didn't. He could have prevented that child's death, but didn't. He was too busy up my ass, banning me or somebody else. So what does that say about him? What does that say about all moderators? They're all like that, in one regard or another. Not specifically a child killing themselves, but it's the same mentality. And shouldn't they be the ones held accountable for these bad things that happen? I mean, after all, they're the ones that control the environment. They're the ones controlling the means of production. They're the ones that get to dictate the course of the superorganism. It is their fault if people are bullies and weirdos and rapists and things like that, because they have conditioned the people to be like that. They had the power to do that. They had the power to decide what was and wasn't acceptable content, and then want to act like they're not held responsible for the end result. That was their monster. They created it. So they should be the ones legally held accountable. They should be the ones that face criminal charges, etc. That's what I'm trying to advocate here. And by organizing people, maybe that can happen. Either on an individual basis where we sue them, maybe on a grander scale where states start passing laws against it, maybe even on a constitutional level where they amend the Constitution that no, you do not have a right to ban people or delete content because that would be against the First Amendment. And well, yes, I know not every website is American. That's not the point. The point is, once there are national laws in place, then that in turn will affect everything else. Once, just like in other countries, they have their own internet laws and it affects the internet as a whole. The same thing would happen if we did this. You affect one country and it indirectly has consequences on the entire global sphere. So, that's my answer to that. My answer is to take it up with the law, because laws actually change things. Trying to reason with people don't, because people do not want to be reasoned with. People want to live in slavery. People want to live in the mud because people are inherently stupid. Maybe it's because they were conditioned that way. Maybe it's genetic. I don't know. I don't care to know because it's not important. What's important is how do we move forward. So, if you got a problem with that, go ahead and make a reply. I know you're going to anyway. And ask yourself why you're worrying about what Jim Prophet Communist thinks instead of worrying about the actual threat of moderators. And yes, I believe moderators are the biggest threat to our modern society, because this internet we have right now has so much more potential, and it's being squandered because of moderators. If it wasn't for moderators, everyone would have a free education right now. You talk about that, how you worry more about education and hunger and things like that. Don't you think if there weren't moderators, we could have everyone exercising free information a lot more abruptly, a lot more fluid, and therefore there would be more accessibility to all information, and then by extension people would be more well educated. When they're more well educated, they're more capable of taking care of one another. When they're more capable of taking care of one another, the other problems solve themselves. Disease, hunger, famine, war, things like that. That is solved when censorship is abolished. But first you have to admit that censorship is the problem, and that if the thoughts in our heads are suppressed, we cannot take action. We can only move our hands when we have thoughts projecting them to move them. If we have no thoughts, we don't move. So first and foremost, we have to secure our thoughts. So, I guess that's it.